I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly, even if the answer is just between you and God. When was the last time you fasted? Not a diet, not skipping lunch because you were too busy. I mean a real fast, an intentional, prayerful, offered to God fast, the kind that the church has practiced from her very first breath, the kind that Jesus assumed his followers would do when he said, not if you fast, but when you fast. When was the last time? For most of us, and I include myself in this, because I am not here to stand above you, I am here to sit beside you. The honest answer is that fasting has slipped away. It has joined the long list of things we used to do, things our grandmothers did without question, things that seem somehow excessive or old-fashioned or maybe even a little extreme in a world that has decided that comfort is a virtue and that depriving yourself of anything, even for God, is something to be discussed with a therapist rather than practiced on your knees. And we have paid a price for that, a price most of us can feel but have not been able to name. A heaviness in the spirit, a flatness in the prayer life, a sense that something that used to be alive in our faith has gone a little quiet, a body that is tired in ways that sleep does not fix, a soul that is hungry in ways that food does not feed. I want to talk to you today about fasting, about water, about the ancient Catholic practice of beginning the day with water taken in a state of fasting, offered to God, united with prayer as an act of bodily and spiritual discipline that the saints lived by and that most modern Catholics have never been taught. I want to tell you what the church has always known about fasting, that the world is only now beginning to rediscover. I want to tell you what happens to your soul when you fast and what happens to your soul when you do not. And I want to give you something practical and real and completely within your reach that you can begin tomorrow morning right in your own kitchen before the day has even started. But first I need to tell you what we lost. Because if you do not understand what you lost, you will not understand why it matters to find it again. The early church fasted, not occasionally, not on special occasions decided by personal preference. The earliest Christian documents outside Scripture, writings from the 1st and 2nd centuries, describe Wednesday and Friday fasts as universal practice among the faithful. Wednesday for the betrayal of our Lord, Friday for his death. Every week, every Christian, from the servant girl in a Roman household to the bishop of a city, they fasted together, they prayed together, and they understood the fast and the prayer as inseparable two hands of the same act of reaching toward God. The Didache, which is one of the oldest Christian documents we have, written sometime in the 1st century, instructs Christians to fast on these days and distinguishes Christian fasting from the fasting practices of those outside the faith. Not because fasting itself was unique to Christians, many traditions fast and always have, but because Christian fasting had a specific character, a specific orientation. It was not fasting for discipline alone, though discipline was part of it. It was not fasting for health, though health was part of it. Christian fasting was fasting offered to God, united to the suffering of Christ, given as a gift of the body and the will to the one who had given everything for us. St. John Chrysostom, preaching in the 4th century with that magnificent, furious love that made him both beloved and exiled, said that fasting is the greatest of all medicines. He meant both things at once, the medicine of the body and the medicine of the soul, because in his world, as in the world of the church for most of her history, those two things were not separated the way we separate them today. You could not heal one without attending to the other. The body that was disciplined served the soul. The soul that was purified through fasting brought healing to the body. They were not enemies. They were partners in the pilgrimage toward God. And then something happened. Gradually, over decades, the mandatory Friday fast in most Western countries was reduced and eventually replaced with abstinence from meat. The Eucharistic fast, which once required the faithful to abstain from all food and drink from midnight before receiving communion, was shortened first to 3 hours, then to 1. Each change was made for pastoral reasons, to accommodate modern schedules and modern lifestyles. And I am not here to second-guess those decisions. The Church has her reasons and her authority and her pastoral wisdom, but something was lost in the accommodation. And what was lost was the felt experience, the lived knowledge, the bodily understanding of what fasting does. Because fasting is one of those things you cannot fully understand by being told about it. You have to do it. Your body has to know it. Your hunger has to teach you something that your mind cannot learn any other way. What does hunger teach you? I will tell you what it teaches me and what the saints have said it teaches them. Hunger teaches you that you are dependent. That is the first lesson, and it is perhaps the most important one for those of us in the second half of life who have worked hard and built things and managed households and raised children and established ourselves in the world. We are people who have learned competence. We have learned to take care of things. And that competence is a genuine gift. God gave you that capacity, and it is good. But competence has a shadow side. It can quietly persuade you that you are the one holding everything together, that your plans and your management and your presence are what is keeping your family and your health and your life in order. And when that quiet lie settles in, not loudly, not dramatically, just settling like dust over years, something in the prayer life begins to thin. Because prayer is the act of a dependent person. Prayer is the act of someone who knows in their bones that they need. And if you have slowly stopped feeling your need, your prayer will slowly stop meaning what it used to mean. Fasting brings the need back. It brings it back in the simplest, most unavoidable way possible. Your body says, I am hungry, and there is nothing you can do about it except wait. And in that waiting, something opens up. The dependency you had forgotten becomes physical and real and present. And that physical reminder has a way of restoring the spiritual truth. You are not holding everything together. You never were. God is holding everything together. You are the one who needs, and the one who provides is not you. This is what the saints mean when they say fasting purifies prayer. It is not that God hears fasting people more clearly than he hears well-fed people. It is that fasting people hear God more clearly. The noise of self-sufficiency goes quiet. The static of comfort and distraction dims. And in the quieter, leaner, more dependent space that hunger creates, the voice of God, which was always there, becomes audible in a way it was not before. St. Peter Chrysologus, the 5th century bishop and doctor of the Church, wrote something I have never forgotten. He said that prayer, mercy, and fasting are one thing. Not three things that go well together. One thing. He meant that they are three aspects of a single movement of the soul toward God. Fasting without prayer is just hunger. Prayer without fasting is, too often, just words. And mercy, the turning toward others in love and generosity, flows most naturally and most powerfully from the soul that has been made tender by hunger and honest by prayer. When you fast, you remember what it is to need, and remembering your own need makes you more capable of seeing and responding to the need of others. Now let us talk about water, because this is where the spiritual practice and the physical reality meet in a way that is both beautifully simple and genuinely powerful. In many parts of Latin America and Southern Europe, there is a tradition among Catholic women of a certain age, the grandmothers, the abuelitas, the nanias, the devout older women who held the faith together in their families through generations of difficulty, of drinking a large glass of water first thing in the morning before anything else, offered to God as the beginning of the day's prayer and the day's fast. Not with ceremony, not with drama, just a simple, quiet act, rising before the household, sitting in the kitchen or at the window, making the sign of the cross, drinking the water slowly with intention, while praying a morning offering or a Hail Mary, or simply sitting in silence with God for the few minutes before the day began. This is not a formally defined sacramental practice. It is not a requirement of canon law, but it is one of those deep-rooted Catholic instincts that survive for centuries because it works. Because the women who practiced it knew, without needing to read scientific studies, that beginning the day this way changed the day. It changed the quality of their prayer. It changed the orientation of their body. It put God first in the most literal and physical sense. The very first thing to enter their body in a new day was water taken quietly, offered to God, before the noise and the need and the work of the day crowded in. And there is a reason this instinct persisted, because the body knows things the modern world is only now articulating in laboratories and medical journals. When you have been asleep for 7 or 8 hours, your body has fasted, it has been without food and largely without water for that entire time. It is, in the most basic biological sense, depleted and dry. The first thing you give it in that state matters. The first thing tells the body what kind of day this is going to be. And a glass of clean water taken slowly and intentionally before anything else, before coffee, before food, before the phone, before the news, does something to the body and something to the spirit that is disproportionate to its simplicity. In the body, it rehydrates systems that have been conserving resources through the night. It awakens digestion and circulation. It clears the pathways through which the day's nutrition will flow. And it does something that the Catholic tradition would recognize even without the physiological vocabulary it cleanses. It is a small internal act of cleansing, a washing of the body from the inside, a preparation of the vessel for the day ahead. And Catholics who understand the power and the meaning of water from the font and from the blessing and from the holy water at the church door have always had an instinct that water is not just water. That water, blessed and offered and used with faith, is an instrument of grace. That even ordinary water, taken in the right spirit, participates in the spiritual order of the day. Now here is where I want to speak very directly to those of you whose prayer lives have grown dry. And I know you are out there, because I have heard from enough of you over the years to know that this is one of the most common hidden sufferings among older Catholics. You have been in the faith for decades. You have prayed the rosary more times than you can count. You have received the sacraments faithfully. And somewhere in the last few years, maybe the last decade, something has shifted. The prayer does not feel the way it used to feel. The rosary which once brought you to tears, now feels like going through the motions. Mass is still Mass and you still go, but there is a distance, a glass wall between you and what you are doing that was not always there. You are faithful, but you are not on fire. This dryness, this spiritual aridity, as the mystics called it, is one of the most universal experiences of the mature spiritual life. St. John of the Cross wrote an entire treatise about it, The Dark Night of the Soul, and he was at pains to explain that it is not a punishment, it is not God withdrawing from you. It is in many cases God calling you to a deeper level of relationship, one that does not depend on feeling and consolation, but rests on naked faith. And that is a real and important truth. But there is another cause of spiritual dryness that St. John of the Cross would also recognize, one that is less mystical and more practical. Sometimes the soul is dry because the body has been neglected as a partner in the spiritual life. Sometimes the flatness in prayer comes from the fact that we have stopped giving the body a role to play in our reaching toward God. We have reduced our faith to the interior, to the mind and the heart, and we have stopped asking the body to participate. And the body, which was made to be a co-laborer in the journey toward God, does not thrive in that exclusion. It becomes passive, and its passivity bleeds into the soul. Fasting wakes the body up. It gives the body back its role. It says to this flesh that God made and Christ redeemed and the Holy Spirit inhabits, you have a part to play in this. You are not just the housing. You are the instrument. Your hunger is a prayer. Your thirst is a prayer. You're choosing to deny yourself today. What you will receive tomorrow is an act of love, an act of faith, an act of worship that your mind alone cannot perform. When you begin to fast, even in a modest way, even in the simple form of rising and drinking your water and spending the first hour of the morning in prayer before you eat anything, you will feel something shift. I will not promise you a sudden flood of consolation. The spiritual life does not work on vending machine logic, but you will feel something, a seriousness returning to the prayer, a weight to it, a sense that this costs something and that what costs something is worth something, which is a truth the comfortable modern world has almost entirely lost. Let me be very practical with you now, because I know that you came here for something you can actually use, and I want to give it to you clearly. Here is what I am proposing, and it is simple. It costs you nothing. It requires no special equipment, no spiritual director, no dispensation, no theological degree. It requires only your willingness and your faith. Tomorrow morning, before anything else, before the coffee, before the television, before the phone, rise and go to the kitchen. Fill a glass with clean water. Stand or sit quietly for a moment. Make the sign of the cross. And offer this simple prayer, or something like it in your own words. Lord, I offer you the first moments of this day. I offer you this water, this small fast, this empty stomach that has nothing in it yet but room for you. Let this be the first gift I give you today. Before I take anything for myself, Mother Mary, be with me. And then drink the water slowly, not gulping it down to get it over with, slowly, as an act, as a prayer. Let it be the first holy thing of the day. Then stay with God for a few minutes before you do anything else. You do not have to pray the entire rosary right then, though if you can, that is a beautiful thing. But even 5 minutes of quiet, sitting with God in the early morning before the day has claimed you 5 minutes of holding your intention, your family, your needs, your gratitude before Him in the silence. Those 5 minutes practiced consistently will change you, The saints and the mystics are unanimous on this. It is the consistency that matters more than the duration. 5 minutes every morning for a month will do more for your spiritual life than a powerful retreat attended once and then forgotten. Now, if you are able to extend the fast further, even if only until 9 or 10 in the morning, consider doing so. You do not have to begin with a heroic fast. The tradition does not require heroism from beginners. It requires intention and fidelity. Begin with the water. Begin with the morning prayer. Hold the fast for an hour or 2 hours or until mid-morning, according to your health and your capacity. If you have medical conditions that require you to eat in the morning, eat and offer your prayer separately, your morning water separately, your intention to fast in whatever way is available to you. God does not require the impossible. He requires the willing. What He requires is not that your fasts be long or severe. What He requires is that it be offered, that it be given to Him as a gift. That when your stomach says it is time to eat, and you say, "Not yet, Lord, this waiting is for you," that small act of will, that small privation offered with love, participates in something immense. It participates in the prayer of the church. It participates in a small and hidden way in the offering of Christ Himself, who fasted 40 days in the desert before His public ministry and who emptied Himself completely on the cross. You are not doing what He did. Nobody is. But you are doing something that is spiritually aligned with what He did. You are saying with your body what He said with His life. Not my will, but thine. I want to speak to you for a moment about the particular graces that the tradition associates with fasting, because I think you deserve to know what you are reaching for when you practice this. Not as a shopping list of spiritual benefits. God is not a vending machine, and fasting is not a transaction, but as an understanding of how God has chosen to work through this particular discipline so that you go into it with open eyes and an expectant heart. The first grace the tradition consistently associates with fasting is clarity. The great spiritual directors across every century of the Church's life have noted that fasting produces a sharpness of spiritual perception that is difficult to achieve any other way. Father John Hardin, the great American Jesuit theologian of the 20th century, who served as a personal theological advisor to St. Teresa of Calcutta, wrote that fasting clears the spiritual senses in much the way that physical rest clears the bodily senses after illness. The soul sees more clearly, the conscience speaks more audibly. The promptings of the Holy Spirit, which were always there, but which the noise of comfort and appetite had drowned out, become perceptible again. If there is a decision in your life right now that you cannot see clearly about your health, about your family, about a relationship, about a situation that has seemed confused and murky for months, consider bringing it to a fast. Not because God will necessarily give you a vision or a sign or a dramatic answer, but because fasting quiets the noise of the self enough that the wisdom that was always available to you in the grace of your baptism and in the gift of the Holy Spirit can actually reach you. The second grace is freedom. This one surprises people who have never fasted seriously. They expect fasting to feel like deprivation, and in the short term it does. But what the saints discover, and what you will discover if you practice this faithfully, is that fasting over time produces a remarkable interior freedom, a freedom from the tyranny of appetite. A freedom from the feeling that you absolutely must have this thing, this comfort, this food, this sensation right now, or you will not be able to function. That tyranny, and it is a tyranny, even when it operates over something as ordinary as what we eat for breakfast, is one of the quiet chains the enemy uses to keep souls small and distracted and self-absorbed. Fasting breaks those chains. Not by willpower alone. You do not have enough willpower, and neither do I, and that is fine. But by grace, by the grace that is released through the offered sacrifice of fasting, the soul gradually becomes more free, more able to choose, more able to say no to what is not God in order to say yes to what is. The third grace is intercession. This is one that the tradition holds very clearly and that I want to make sure you understand. When you fast and pray for another person, a child who has left the faith, a husband struggling with addiction, a friend facing illness, a grandchild you can see drifting, your intercession carries a particular weight. It is as if the sacrifice of the fast becomes the offering plate on which you place your prayer for that person. And the combination of the prayer and the sacrifice rises to God with a force that prayer alone, comfortable prayer, costs me nothing prayer, does not carry in the same way. This is not a mechanical formula. It is a spiritual reality the church has always recognized. Our Lady at Fatima asked for prayer and fasting together. She asked for them as a pair. She knows what they accomplish together that neither accomplishes alone. If you have someone in your life you are desperately praying for, someone whose soul you lie awake at night worrying about, bring them to your fast. Put their name in the fast. Offer the hunger and the thirst and the small privation of the morning for them by name before God. And do not be discouraged if the answer is slow. The answered prayers of fasting have a long history of arriving not quickly but surely, and often in ways the person who prayed them did not anticipate and could not have engineered. Now I want to take a moment and speak to something that I think is sitting quietly in the back of the mind of some of you. It is the question of the body, because many of you are at a stage of life where the body has become complicated, where there are medications and conditions and careful management of what you eat and when you eat it and how much. And you may be wondering whether any of this is for you, whether the church's call to fasting applies to you in the state your body is in, whether God can really use a fast as limited and medically cautious as yours. Here is what I want you to hear. The church has never required the same fast from the sick that she requires from the healthy. Canon law explicitly exempts those who are ill from fasting obligations. And the spirit of the tradition is even broader than the letter of the law. God has never asked you to harm yourself in His name. The sacrifice He wants is the offering of the will, not the destruction of the body He gave you and intends to raise on the last day. What this means practically is that your fast may look very different from the fast of a person in robust health. And that is not only acceptable, it is right. Your fast might be the glass of water in the morning and 15 minutes of prayer before you take your medication and your breakfast. Your fast might be giving up the thing you enjoy most with your morning coffee, just that one thing, just for today, offered to God. Your fast might be choosing the plainer option instead of the more pleasing one, or eating the smaller portion, or going without the afternoon snack, or turning off the television for an hour and sitting in silence instead. These are real fasts. They have real spiritual weight. God is not measuring the number of calories denied. He is looking at the heart. And the heart that offers what it can, however small, with genuine love and genuine intention, is the heart he receives. I also want to say something to those of you who are caring for others, a spouse, a parent, a child with special needs who carry a weight of service so heavy that any additional discipline sounds almost laughable. You are already giving so much. You are already denied so much. Your sleep, your freedom, your plans, your preferences, all of it has been offered, whether you thought of it that way or not, on the altar of love for another person. I want to tell you something that I hope brings you real comfort. The church has a category for what you are doing. It is called the fast of service. It is recognized in the tradition that those who give themselves exhaustively in care for another are already practicing a form of fasting, a fasting of self-will, of personal freedom, of the comfortable life they might otherwise have had. This is a genuine fast. It is a fast that is pleasing to God. You do not need to add external privations on top of what you are already living. What you may need, and this is my gentle pastoral suggestion to you, is simply to name it, to offer it, to say, Lord, this exhaustion is for you. This sacrifice of my day is for you. I offer it with love for the soul I am caring for, and for the souls in purgatory, and for the conversion of sinners. That naming, that intentional offering, transforms what would otherwise be mere suffering into genuine prayer. The difference between suffering and redemptive suffering is intention. Pain without offering is just pain. Pain offered to God becomes something the church calls a spiritual sacrifice, and it is among the most powerful things a human being can give. I want to close today by bringing us back to the water, back to that simple glass you are going to drink tomorrow morning before the day begins, because I do not want it to be just a health habit. I do not want it to be just a nice Catholic custom. I want it to be a decision, a daily renewed decision about what comes first in your life and in your day. When you rise tomorrow and you go to the kitchen and you fill that glass and you stand for a moment in the quiet before anyone else is awake, in that moment you are doing something the first Christians did. You are doing something the martyrs did in the cells where they waited for death. You are doing something the monks did in their cold stone churches at 4 in the morning when the rest of the world was asleep. You are doing something your grandmother did and her mother did, and the long, quiet army of Catholic women who held the faith alive through centuries of difficulty did every single morning without fanfare and without recognition and without expecting anything except the simple grace of beginning the day with God. You are saying, with a glass of water and a sign of the cross and a few minutes of silence, you first. Before the food and the news and the noise and the demands and the worry, you first. Before I fill myself with anything else, I come to you empty. I come to you hungry. I come to you exactly as I am, with nothing to offer but this empty morning and this willing heart. And I offer them to you. He will take that offering. He always takes that offering. And what he gives back, not immediately, not always dramatically, but surely across the days and weeks and months of faithful practice, is what you have been hungry for without knowing how to name it. More of him, closer to him, the fire in the faith that you thought had gone down to embers, beginning quietly to rise again. Begin tomorrow. You already have the water. You already have the faith. That is enough to start. Now, If you have stayed with me all the way to this moment, I want you to know something. I do not think this video found you today by accident. I think God put it in front of you because He knows what you have been carrying and He knows what you have been hungry for. And He wanted to remind you that the remedies He has given His church are always simpler and always closer than we think. And if even one word of what we talked about today has landed somewhere real in your heart, if you are already thinking about that glass of water in the morning and what it might mean to offer it, then I want to ask you a favor. Subscribe to this channel right down there below this video, because every single week we go deeper into the truths that matter, the practices, the prayers, the ancient wisdom of the faith that nobody is teaching in the ordinary places anymore. The things that keep a soul alive and a faith on fire, you deserve to know all of them. Do not miss a single one. Subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. God bless you, dear friend. Drink your water tomorrow and begin again